How's it going, everyone? My name is Ed. Let's install some subframe bushings. All right, so what you're looking at right now is a set of bushings that I purchased from Sc300. I have this same set in my other Lexus Sc300. As a matter of fact, I made a video on how I installed the other set, and a couple of y'all had asked a couple of questions on how I installed these in particular in the Diff. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna basically make a quick video from beginning to end of me dropping the Diff, installing, these inside of the Diff after I get the other ones out of the Diff, and then installing this inside of the subframe. And then if I have time, go over these. These are supplemental bushings, what they do, and where you can get them from, all that stuff. Now, if you guys are new to the channel, consider subscribing if you guys like this sort of stuff. I am in the middle of going NAT. There's the turbo here. I just installed it, got the intercooler piping all routed nice. And things, for the most part, are starting to turn the corner, right? Everything's starting to come together nicely. This is the point of the build where, you get a little excited and you really want to drive the car and do all of that stuff. But I have to install this first before I can put the drive shaft in. And so that's what I'm gonna do. Okay, so now that I'm underneath the car, hopefully you guys can get a good idea of what I'm working with here. These bushings, they're shot. They need to be replaced, especially in my case, since I'm gonna be making a little bit more power. One of the things that you'll notice when you have bad bushings is you'll get a little bit of wheel hop in the rear, where the back tires kind of bounce around as you're if you dump the clutch. It's a good, easy way to try to see if you have wheel hop. I was getting a ton of that in this car. So this is long overdue in my case. So what you're gonna wanna do here is you're gonna wanna drop your sway bar. You don't need to remove it. They have these two bolts up there that's connecting the sway bar to the chassis. I already unbolted this side. I'm gonna do the same to the passenger side. You're just gonna have a little bit more room to remove the bolts that are going inside of the Diff. After you do that, you're gonna wanna drop the axles. You're gonna wanna remove the axles from both sides. You're gonna wanna disconnect your drive shaft. And then if you have your exhaust on, depending on your exhaust setup, you may need to remove that. In my case, I don't have the drive shaft or exhaust on, so this is a perfect time for me to do this. So I'm gonna go ahead and drop the sway bar and remove the axles, and then I'll jump onto the next thing right before I drop the Diff. All right, so there's the Diff, and these are the bushings that we're gonna remove. And first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna drill them out with this drill. Then I'm gonna take this and kind of position it on the inside, something like that, and just beat the crap out of these inside until the bushing comes out. So you could use an air hammer. I didn't have to use that last time. It took me maybe 4 minutes each side, 3-4 minutes of beating each side, just taking my time going in. And yeah, that's how they came out. I'm gonna record myself doing this. So I'm gonna set the camera down and we'll see what happens. Terrible. This is not the best way to do this. And there it is. Now, I will say this, if you have a press, that's probably gonna be the best way to get these out. You don't have to do it the way I did. you know, pressing them is definitely going to be easier. But if you have an air hammer, you can do it that way too. I don't have a press or an air hammer, so I just used this and that, and a couple minutes of you know, massaging, if you will. They eventually will come out. Now, what I'm getting ready to do right now is I'm gonna install these. These are the bushings that's gonna go inside of the diff. And after I install this, I'm gonna go underneath the car and get the other bushings out, and I'll jump back on afterwards. All right, so I'm gonna show you guys two different ways to install these bushings in your diff. One way you can do it is the way I'm doing it here, which is I just took a old nut and bolt with some washers, and I put them through the diff and the bushing and just tighten them down together. This is a slow and steady process, but it's very effective. Just take your time if you don't have any, you know, tools like an impact or anything, and eventually these will go in. If you're in a bit of a time crunch, I don't know, let's say you have a track event coming up the next day or so, and you need to hurry up and put this in, you can take your good old-fashioned hammer and a block of wood, and you can just give it a couple of whacks, and it'll go right in. Now, I will say, just make sure that the bushings are straight and lined up perfectly before you do this. Both ways, actually. Just make sure that they're going in straight, and you'll be in and out in no time. Another way you can do this is a good old-fashioned press. Now, I don't think this is necessary. I mean, if it's being a little stubborn and the other two options are not working right, you could just take a press like this and just figure out a way to stand the diff up and just press the bushings in and go from there. And as you can see, I got the bushings on and the diff is ready to be installed. Now, before I install this diff back inside of the car, I need to slide underneath of the car and press out those old, disgusting, worn out bushings. And what I'm gonna use to do that is I'm gonna use this tool I bought from Powerhouse Racing. I 100% recommend it if you don't have it and you're attempting to do this job. It will make your life a lot easier when you're trying to get these bushings out. And yeah, so right now I'm gonna set this camera down and get to work. All right, so I finally got the old bushings out. Pretty easy, straightforward. Here are the new bushings, and I marked them so when I'm underneath, I'm not guessing and trying to see which way is top. This side doesn't really matter because it's just one hole. You just want to make sure that the oval side is up and down and not like that. So, but this side, they are off-centered. So just use the old one for comparison. There is an arrow on the top right there and it points up. So just try to put them back in the same way you took them out. Now, I'm not going to record myself installing these. I'm just going to put these in really quickly, but how to install them with this tool is the same way I pulled the old bushings out. I'm just going to use that same tool to press these new ones in. All right, so I finally got the diff installed and here's what everything looks like. Everything lined up perfectly. As you can imagine, this tool made everything so much easier. I highly recommend that Powerhouse Racing tool here. But yeah, front is in, the rear is in, and everything's looking good. Now, earlier in the video, I kind of talked about these briefly. These are supplemental bushings. I'm actually not going to install these in this video. When I was inspecting the bushings in there now, everything looks pretty good for what they are. So I'm just going to hold off and, you know, do a real comparison with just the solid diff bushings now, see how that feels, and then maybe later on down the road, I'll throw these on and then see if I can tell a difference. But if you guys enjoyed this video, hopefully it was a little bit more informative than the first video I made. Give me a thumbs up, hit the like button for me, and subscribe if you haven't already. And if you have any questions about anything that I missed or just anything at all, just let me know in the comment section, and yeah, we can talk about it there. Until next time, peace.